So now that we've talked about the data panel, where it's located, and sort of how to navigate through it, let's talk about A360. Now, A360 is the web interface. Now, the web interface really allows you to get access to your data from any browser anywhere, simply by logging into your hub. Now, this has a few different types of things that are built into it. The functionality of the data panel is all inside of A360, but there's some additional stuff that we can do inside here as well. Now, a quick note for you. You can create a free A360 account. If you share any data with somebody for your project, they can get access to it in A360 even if they don't have Fusion and they don't have a Fusion license. So A360 is a little bit more in terms of functionality than just sharing stuff with a link. And of course, we're going to talk about sharing and how to navigate and get around that. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at what A360 looks like. So I have two A360s open. I actually have my personal hub open as well as my team hub. Now, we're not talking about team hubs just yet. We'll talk about that in its own module, but you can access the data in the same way simply by logging into your hub. Now, notice the URL in this case says my hub, or this one says my solid box because it's the name of the hub. So as we're looking in here, this is essentially what we see in our data panel, but we have more control over how it's viewed. For instance, I have only displayed projects that are pinned. I can go into my Pluralsight project, get access to all the folders we were looking at, get access to the file management folder, and then I can see everything else that's inside of here. Now, when we look inside of here, we have a few things that we can talk about. We can click multiples, and we can do things like move them. So we can move them to different locations. We can copy them, or we can delete them. Now, inside of here, because we are talking about cloud storage, most of the time it's not a good idea to simply delete stuff. Typically, I would make a project called deleted or discarded and move everything into there. There's really no reason not to do that unless you're nearing your 500 gigabyte limit. All right, so as we're looking at this, what we have is access to all of our data. So as we look at this, again, we can do things like edit the name directly in here, which we can do in the data panel. We can share the information. We can download it, which is called export in here. Or we can do things like edit, copy, move, or delete. Now, if we choose download, it gives us the option to do an archive file or a bunch of other different file types, such as Inventor, some default sort of intermediate CAD types, DWG, DXF, STL file. So if you're going to do a 3D print of your file, you can do it directly from here, and even SketchUp. If we click to share, it opens up our share link. Now, this allows us to do a few different things. And again, we're going to talk about all this stuff sort of in context of their own files, but we will touch on all these topics here as well. So in terms of sharing, we can turn sharing on or off. We can copy a link. We can put it in an email or embed it, which allows you to do some pretty nice things if you have a website or a web interface you want to use. We can allow people to download the files to their computer, which will let them download an A360 file, the Fusion archive file, or any of the intermediate CAD formats. And we can also password protect it. Now, if we copy this and put it in our browser, what you get access to is the information that you would see inside of A360, a little less functionality. Now, in this case, this is our CAM example. So we can rotate it around, we can move it, we can zoom in and zoom out, we can look at the properties, which are basically the detailed descriptions of it. We can modify some of the settings in terms of navigation and performance inside of here. And we can also view things like multiple bodies in the design, or even things like the CAM toolpaths directly inside of the A360 link. If we have the option for people to download it, then they can come up here and choose which file type they want and download directly to their machine. Now, back in A360, if we click on this, we can view it directly in A360. And again, if somebody has a free A360 account, it'll give them more access to certain things, such as viewing the CAM setup, viewing any renderings that were done, looking at where references are, and again, maybe placing comments directly inside here as well. So there's a lot of great information that can be accessed and shared with A360 or even with the share links. So as we look at the interface here, when we view this with A360 as opposed to viewing it with the A360 link, we have access to a bit more things like comments directly in here. We can mark up the drawing and save it. If we want to leave comments such as telling somebody that this area is not likely to be machined, if we need to make some changes, we can add text in here and say that something missing. So these are things that we can do directly inside of A360. It saves a view with that comment in there. And this is something that we can do in A360 that really cannot happen with the A360 link that you send to somebody. But there's a lot of great access to that information directly inside of a browser. And this is stuff that you get access to whether or not you're at your home machine. It's all web functionality. Other things that happen inside of A360 that don't necessarily happen inside of the data panel, it shows you things about the members that are invited to these projects. It shows you any recent activity. I added a comment directly to the can milling example. I uploaded a document. I uploaded some files. So we can see all that information directly here. We can go to a calendar of events. If you want to add a calendar, anytime you place information here, it'll send an email out to anybody that is currently in your project. And you can also create discussions. So currently there are no discussions in this project, but you can create discussions, and anybody that's a project member will have access to those discussions. Depending on their settings, might get emails, and you can view the information directly related to those. So that's a bunch of great access here. Let's go ahead and go back to our presentation.